Hello guys, and welcome to day 13 of our Star Biology review. Today we are continuing our talks on evolution. Yesterday we were discussing the 5 fingers of evolution, the mechanisms that cause evolution to occur in a population. Today we're going to be going over the speed of evolution and the patterns. So as you can see here on your screens, we'll be going over things like the rate of change, and we'll be looking at things called gradualism, stasis, and we'll be looking at fossil records. So for first, second, and third period, you have already done the first half of these notes. You have already colored in. For fifth and seventh period, you will need a yellow, green, blue, and purple color for today's activity. So for, again, first, second, and third periods, you have already seen this, but I want you to add some things to your notes. So yesterday we were talking about the evidence of common ancestors. For fifth and seventh period, this is new information for you. In the evidence of common ancestors, we are looking at what are ways we can prove that organisms shared a common ancestor, shared a relative. So some ways we can look at are things like artificial selection, where it's man-made with chosen traits, which means we can identify who came from who because we created them. In fossil records, we can see evolutionary change through fossil records by looking at the traits seen in fossils, such as the appearance of certain traits like the appearance of feet or no feet, the appearance of claws or no claws, the appearance of a head change. We can look at biogeography, meaning species that live in the same area are more closely related. Organisms found in the same part of a country might have a history of relatedness compared to somebody who might be found on different continents. We can look at molecular similarities like DNA similarities. And we can look at things like homologous structures, where same structure, different function. So artificial selection, fossil records, geographic distribution, homologous structures, embryology, DNA sequences, and natural selection. All right. Continuing on, here's a question. For those of you in first and second period, you already saw this. However, for everyone else, let's see how well we can do. So, during early stages of development, dolphin embryos begin to develop hind limbs. By the time the dolphin fetuses are fully developed, the hind limbs have disappeared. Which statement best explains the early development and disappearance of hind limbs in dolphins? So one thing about this question is we are talking about the early stages of development. This is a key that we are talking about embryos. So we're focusing on embryos. Now, they want to know what explains the appearance and then disappearance of the hind limbs. So at one time, the dolphins had hind limbs, and at another time, they disappeared. Remember, in any single evolution question, there's 2 things that we're looking at: common ancestors and change over time. So out of these examples, out of these answer choices, the only one that we should see some hint of ancestors and changing is letter C. Letter A says that dolphin fetuses change their development to adapt to aquatic environment, but having limbs does not lead to swimming. The genes that control the development of hind limbs are destroyed. So they're saying that genes, DNA, let's say DNA is being destroyed here. And we should know that that's not what's happening in evolution. Evolution is not about destroying DNA. It's about over time, we should see different traits appear. So different genes are being expressed. Letter C says that early ancestors, keyword here is ancestors, had these limbs, which is why there's the appearance of them, and that later on they disappear because they're no longer needed. And letter D says they're evolving to become terrestrial animals, but again, the limbs have disappeared, so that's not going to be it. And here's an example, a little bit about what that idea looks like. Here we see the limbs starting to form in the green circle there. Limbs are there. Limbs are now gone. Okay, so now on the bottom of page 16, you're going to go ahead and using your yellow, blue, green, and purple colors, we're going to color in, or I'm sorry, yellow, blue, green, and yellow colors, red. You're going to now color in your homologous structures. Again, these are called homologous structures. And they're homologous structures because we see that there's green, the presence of green in each one of these arms. So this is a human arm. Here is a dog. And here's a horse. Now, the next thing we're going to talk about again is what makes something analogous, homologous, or vestigial when we look at body parts. So homologous structures like our human arm, dog arm, horse arm here are similar structures that are used for different jobs. We say similar structures because we see that the same colors are used in each example. So similar structures, but we know each one of these arms are used for something different. That's hence the different jobs. But because they share these similar structures, we say that there is shared ancestry here, meaning common ancestor. While analogous structures, think of things like a bird's wing to a butterfly wing. They're used for the same job, but they're built differently from each other. So homologous structures show common ancestry, analogous structures show no relatedness. Then we have embryology. Embryology is when we look at the development of organisms, so in the womb to the time that they're born. These are embryos here, calf, rabbit, human embryos, and we see that in this form of development, they all do look similar. But we also know that as they are going to get older and develop features, they're going to start looking different from each other. But the longer that two species remain similar looking, the more related they are going to be. So embryology can show us common ancestry through how long in development two organisms stay relatively similar. All right, now we're moving on to page 17. Page 17, oh, I'm sorry, page 18 of your booklets, page 18. We're skipping a page coming back. So page 18 of your booklets. Now that we went over terms like homologous structures, analogous structures, we're going to add in 3 words here. And these words are going to be for the types of evolution. So go ahead and write in types of evolution. So when organisms share a common ancestor because of homologous structures, we call this divergent evolution. That means at some time they shared some original ancestor, and then because of maybe some of those ancestors moving to different spots where they start to experience different things in different environments, they started to use those structures that they originally all had in different ways. And now we say that they're just common ancestors. They diverted away from each other. Next, we have convergent evolution. Convergent is when two organisms that share the similar structures, in this case, analogous structures, but they're not coming from a common ancestor. So like sharks and whales. A whale is a mammal, a shark is a fish. They are not really related at all, but they look similar. And that means they have come together to share similar traits, even though they don't share similar backgrounds. And finally, we have coevolution, where when one organism evolves, the other one evolves with it. So we say that they evolve. So I'm sorry for this. I gotta erase that. They evolve. Put that back out. There you go. Together. When one evolves to have a certain trait, the other one evolves to either work with it or work against it, but they're influencing each other's evolution. For such as a flower has developed a certain shape of its petals so that a hummingbird can more easily feed from them, or maybe a certain flower does not want the hummingbird to feed from them, so they have longer tubes with the pollen at the very bottom. And in conjunction with that, at the same time, these hummingbirds have evolved to have longer beaks so they can reach farther into the flower. That is coevolution. All right, here is a dendrogram problem. Now, dendrograms show us we can map relationships. So here we see an example of some types of bears or, ursine populations here. And what we see is these kind of branches. Here's a branch, there's a branch, these branch points. So we see all these branch points. The branch equals a common ancestor. So basically, when was the last time that they were basically coming from one species? Now a branch point, so here's our branch. This branch point means that they started to divert from each other. They diverged. Now maybe the original ancestor to this sun bear and brown bear here, maybe some of those bears moved to one area, became brown bears. Some moved to another area, became sun bears. So let's come back to the problem here. Which statement is best supported by the information in the dendrogram? So take a little bit, think about your answer. This question we are looking for, answer choice, C. So why is it C? Because when we look at lesser pandas, so letter C says lesser pandas are more genetically similar to raccoons than they are to giant pandas. So basically they're saying lesser pandas are more related to raccoons than giant pandas. So to understand which one is more related, we have to find out when's the last time they shared common ancestors. So these stars represent their branch points, the last common ancestor between each type. First star is a common ancestor between raccoons and pandas. Second star, this is the common ancestor between giant pandas and lesser pandas. Now, as we move from the left, this is the past, to the present, the more to the right this branch point is, the more recently two things were related. So when we compare these branches to each other, we see that the lesser panda was more recently related to a raccoon than they were to giant pandas. All right, now continuing on, let's look at fossil records. In fossil records, what can we learn from them? Well, we can learn how did a species evolve, did it happen very quickly? Did it happen over a longer period of time? We can learn who might share common ancestors based on traits that we see between that two fossils have in common. And we can also see what kind of environment these species grew up in. So on page 17, we're going back a page now, page 17, we have the patterns of evolution. So on the left, we have punctuated equilibrium. Punctuated equilibrium is where we see flat lines occur over time. These flat lines are stasis. So this means that an organism stays unchanged for a given period of time. And then, so here's our flat line. that means no change. All of a sudden, there's a sudden change. Then we have another flat line. This is stasis, no change. Then sudden change. Then again, flat line for no change again. On the right, we have gradualism. This is small, consistent changes. Small, consistent changes. Here we see this over time. There's some changes building up, and then boom, new trait. Over time, small changes are building up in different organisms. Boom, new species, new species. Small change, new species, new species. There's no flat lines here. There's maybe small curves, and that's just showing small changes. All right, back to page 18 now. In fossil records, again, we see examples of how fast evolution happens. So on the left, we have punctuated equilibrium. Notice keyword here, put a little star next to that word stasis. And then rapid change, underline rapid change. We see that the fossils remain in stasis. So from the beginning, the past, to about midway, these fossils are the same shape, same size. So they went through no change, stasis. Then out of nowhere, from one level to the next, so one era to next era, we see a sudden change from small to big. That's rapid change. But then going for the next level, we see no change again. Compare that with the right side, gradualism. We see that each layer, layer 1, layer 2, layer 3, layer 4, each layer, we see small changes occur in this fossil group, telling us that there were pretty consistent changes over time. Now let's finish off our notes for today on page 17. In punctuated equilibrium, evolution occurs in rapid bursts followed by long periods of stasis. Gradualism suggests that species evolve slowly and steadily over long periods of time. This one we're going to highlight evolve slowly and steadily. On our first one, we're going to highlight rapid burst followed by long periods of stasis. Again, stasis means no change. So while punctuated equilibrium focuses on quick change, gradualism emphasizes gradual changes over time. Okay, guys, so today in class, you are going to work on a small cutout, and then I'm going to give you time to work on any missing assignments. All right, so good luck, and I'll see you in class.